and gentlemen, it does give me good pride and good privilege to be inviting up next our discussants, our participants, because this is a CXO panel discussion where we will understand and harness the power of data and AI for business. Well, this session is no ordinary session. This will look into the understanding of how using foresight an organization can create that effective plan that eliminates any reactive decision making which could cripple a business in the long run. So I would say that this is, and this would be a paramount discussion. The discussion points would be understanding and critically looking at the market conditions, the need for agility using data for augmenting businesses, understanding data and BI across functions. Well, our session members are acclaimed in their stature. Allow me to please welcome Rajendran N, the Chief Executive Officer from Indian Financial Technology and Allied Services, IFTAS. With that, we are very happy to also be welcoming Sachin Datta, the Chief Operating Officer and Director Technology, Canara HSBC OBC Life Insurance. Allow me to also please welcome with some good applauses and a smile and some good vibes, Manikandan Thangaratnam, the Senior Director, Mobility and Platforms from Uber. Let's also give it up and welcome Milind Kulkarni, the Chief Technology Officer from Vikram Solar. Well, we're also joined by Zubair Alam, BU Head Enterprise Business, Tel ENC Reddington India Limited. And I have to be absolutely correct in my duties while inviting our panel moderators, Dipta Ghosh, Partner and Data Analytics Leader, PwC India. So Dipta, if you're all set, we are good to go. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Shikha. That was great, and I feel very privileged to be part of this esteemed panel. Of course, the subject of this panel is extremely topical, and it is about how we are actually harnessing the value of data, particularly in these stressful or disrupted times. So, I think as a professional, we all knew and we always used data in various walks of life. And we always knew what is going to be the benefit of taking a data-driven decision. And all the tools and techniques are already there. But I think it took us a bit of a shake-up in the form of this pandemic to really embrace it. And what we could not achieve by years of change management got done in almost in a quick shot, because there were challenges all across. To start with, it was all a touchless and contactless paradigm. You had people in your organizations working remotely. There were uncertainties of demand and supply, so there were disruptions. There were challenges around fulfilling the needs across the different parts of the value chain. And last but not the least there's a huge degree of uncertainty about what is going to come. I mean, who would have even imagined that when the things were going very, very well in the month of January or February, suddenly there will be such a spike in the month of April, and it will completely change some of our assumptions. So while uncertainty and change was always something which was there in the past, it has become even more prevalent and more on our face, if you like, in these days. So, so that's where we are grappling with. And what I would like to do is to kind of touch upon different aspects of our current environment and how does it dovetail in the field of data and analytics, AI, and whether it allows us some tools which can help us to address some of these challenges. So maybe what I'll do is that I will kind of invite Sachin and from a life insurance perspective, we know that it is a sector which is very much a touch and feel kind of a sector. You need to talk to people, to customers. You need to convince them. You need to have a large amount of people who are out there in the field. And hence, a completely touchless and contactless paradigm makes it a little bit of a challenge in order to address this. Also, there could be uncertainties in terms of the demand. In fact, there was an article as late as today where one of your peers have actually said that it's very difficult to figure out what's going to happen in FY22. So given the fact that many ways of working have been disrupted and there is also a bit of an uncertainty the rest of the year, just wanted to understand your perspective in terms of how are you first of all dealing with this, and secondly, is technology or in specifically data or AI is helping you in some way to at least partially mitigate some of the challenges which you're facing. So Sachin, it'd be great to hear your views on it.
Thanks, Sudipta. Very good morning to everyone. I think very important question, and very frankly, each one of us is witnessing the kind of COVID wave. I think the use cases for analytics, if I were to kind of put it that way, or use of data, has undergone a significant change to what we were doing pre-COVID, what we are doing during COVID, and probably what we'll end up doing post. What we'll end up doing post will be more of a predictive thing, so I'll probably hold my comments over there. But I think what we were doing pre-COVID, is the fact of how do you kind of look at data to kind of increase the top line, and also look at cross-sell opportunities. India being an under-penetrated in terms of the insurance sector and all. So I think all insurance companies, including ours, what we've been trying to do is how could we penetrate more? How could we kind of educate our customers more on the need for life insurance? So of course, a lot of focus was on that side, and a lot of work was being done, on increasing customer engagement levels, and also looking at persistency, because persistency is a very important metric for insurance companies, and using data to predict the behavior of the customer and to be with the customer who probably may need us more than other customers who see the value in the proposition that we sell. I think there has to be a differential experience. So now all of that was kind of pre-COVID, right? And what happened during COVID last year when I think somewhere around in March, we saw the lockdowns essentially happening. It was not just about trying to do what you were doing, but I think it was also about how you were doing things. People in one office space now scattered across. Clearly requires a lot of motivation, a lot of engagement at an employee level to keep these kind of initiatives forward. When you're kind of socially disconnected, if I were to use that word, but still digitally connected. And I think that's where a lot of effort went through. Some of the things actually that we did during the lockdown was to prepare ourselves for a remote working kind of a setup. I think the thing stabilized. And then, of course, during COVID, I think the focus also changed. And there was also enhanced focus on, the risk management side. While it was there earlier as well, it was taking a very different kind of a shift. Given that COVID does have, very close linkages with mortality, morbidity, and, those kind of concepts. So it's very important for the organizations to, and we did so, right? Moved, from one strategic area on to the next one, which was how could we kind of work in a manner that can protect the interests of all policyholders as well as interests of the company as well, and so on and so forth for the employees as well. I think that's where data is playing and continues to play a lot of good role, giving us predictions on the pockets where we feel the risk could be high. A certain set of customers where we feel, a more due diligence may be required over others where probably a due diligence, that stringent due diligence may not be kind of required. Why to kind of let a customer undergo the same process? One size does not fit all for insurance companies, and hence differential treatment to enhance risk management has been our focus area. And we're using a lot of data analytics to kind of help us predict, a certain trend. A health trend, although the data is scanty, as we all know, because of COVID. But I think all of this put together in a use case will help the insurance organizations predict, certain behavior from a mortality and morbidity side. Not only, and I don't want to kind of sound where I say that, during COVID times, you're trying to, increase the top line only. I think it's also important that if you see a trend or if you see that, a customer may be at a higher risk, as against to others, reaching out to that customer and, explaining the customer how could certain healthy habits be kind of taken over, that also is a very important engagement initiative from life insurance companies' perspective. So I think a lot of focus at the moment is going on. How do you kind of oversee the business that you're writing? and try to give seamless experience to the customers that may not need stringent scrutiny over others, where it may require a little bit more of probing and understanding. For example, if you're traveling more frequently, you're crossing international borders, if you are having comorbidity, how could it impact? So, all of that is going for those customers where we see the risk. And also during these times when, face-to-face conversations, or, there are lockdowns that are there in the country, I think claims or paying out on death claims and making sure that you're able to do sufficient due diligence backed by data is critical. So a lot of analytics is going over there, and also increasing persistency. The easiest thing that you do when a crisis like this hits you is to kind of drop the ball and discontinue your life insurance policy. I think it's probably should be the last thing that one should be doing during these times. It's important for each one of us to be sufficiently insured. And hence persistency use cases and making sure that retention is right is going to be the focus area that we're focusing on. In terms of what I see in the future, and last point for me, what I see in the future, Sudipta, you're right. It's uncertain. The experience that we have or the data that we have is scanty for us to have a sufficient credible thing to predict what could the next wave do, how effective would be the vaccine. All of those things have to be looked in, to be given some more time for the data to evolve, and then to be able to baseline our predictions basis what we see. So, my outlook for the future is probably anyone's guess on the panel. And I think you mentioned, I wish and I hope for everyone's safety. But if let's say wave 3 does have an impact, then are we geared up? Are we doing the right things today to predict this adverse outcome, and do things sufficiently right today to make the impact lesser, is where we're putting a lot of energies right now, from data crunching and artificial intelligence perspective. So that would be, my take if I were to break it down into 3 phases, what we did pre, during, and post. Focus continues to be with the customers and to be able to serve our customers and to be able to pay claims, because that's what life insurance companies typically do, and using a lot of extensive data to kind of support this.
No, great. I think this is great, Sachin, and I really picked up a couple of very important points which you mentioned. One was, of course, the persistency. How do you ensure that you stay engaged with the customer, and particularly in these times when they need the most, are they really doing it or not? And that is all about the education and the outreach and the communication and the engagement which you talked about. Taking this theme further, let me invite Mani. And the reason I'm inviting Mani you is also because of the fact that when we talk about the ride sharing or this phenomenon which has gripped us in the last few years, we also see that there has been some changes in the way people are now using it. And also this has become a little more pronounced, particularly during the current pandemic. So wanted to understand from you, Mani, in terms of your experience of what really changed, and also if you can touch upon some of the measures which you have taken to address some of these changes and disruptions in your world, that will be great for us to understand.
Sure, Sudipta. Thanks for the question. It was a massive change, right? A lot of learnings, especially on the mobility business, right? One of the things that we saw was, it is really important that we need to understand customers' needs, right? And the only way by which we strongly feel that we can address a lot of customer needs is through technology, right? So the question is, how quickly can we understand the new behaviors or the new needs that arises? Because these things changes every week, every month, and it differs between every city versus every country versus every region, right? So how are we able to understand those needs? Because it's not just one particular silver bullet that you are trying to find and then solve, right? How are we able to understand that through data? And how do we serve that in a customized fashion, in a localized fashion, so that we understand the needs? And how quickly can we even address those needs? And it's for a big company, it's not very easy to just tweak the products to satisfy their needs, right? So 2-3 things that we need is, we invested a lot. Of course, Uber, as is very big on data, right? We do a lot of stuff on data. Maybe in your next question, I'll talk about how we think about data itself, right? So we do a lot of things about data. Right? But one thing that we want as part of pandemic, what we felt was we need to first categorize and figure out how do we categorize and understand the needs which is specific to a region or a locality or a country or a city. That way, it's not we are solving it, holistically for one shot, which may not serve everybody's needs. That is one. The second thing is how do we, once we understand those things, right, how quickly can we go forward? One of the strategies that we took, which was really powerful, which helped Uber to actually, tweak their systems to address the needs of customers very fast, was our focus on platforms. So what I meant by focus on platforms is when we built technologies, we built it in a platform-based manner so that when new customer requirements arises, building new lines of businesses through the platforms becomes much easier and faster. Right. For a good example of that is Uber Eats, our Uber delivery. Right. It leverages a lot of systems that is actually powering Uber rides. Right. Even though Uber Eats is as big as a rides business. Right. But even if there are a lot of other new lines of businesses that are coming up like Uber Medic or Uber Connect, which can help in delivery, we are able to pull off all those new lines of businesses so quick because of the Power-It platform. Plus, we are leveraging data to figure out which is the right city, which is the right region, so that we can expose these things. Right. So, how are we preparing for the next 6 to 12 months? Change is going to be constant. I think everybody are going to say yes for that. Right. Are we having systems to understand customers' behaviors? Are we empowering our platforms enough so that we can address those behaviors in a very fast? So that's the investment that we have done, and we feel strongly that we have enough capability through analytics that we can really understand customers' behaviors because we operate more than 5,000 plus cities and 100 plus countries. Right? How do we understand those things in a customized fashion and deliver? Right? That's the mechanism process that we have in place to understand.
No, that's fascinating to hear, Mani. And I think one thing I clearly picked up from what you said is the investment in building the platform and the ability which it has given you to quickly transform that platform to remain innovative and provide new solutions or more relevant solutions for your customers. So in that vein, I would like to probably invite Rajendran. You have been involved in building, one of the biggest platforms as far as the payments is concerned, and now we are talking about a paradigm where we would be doing contactless and touchless ways of transaction, and hence this will become even more and more important. So, wanted to understand from your perspective as to what are some of the changes or what is it that you are foreseeing in your world, particularly with respect to either a platform or with respect to using the data in a meaningful way to make a substantial change in everybody's lives.
Okay, thank you, both. Thank you, the Mani and Sachin. I think they have brought the issue of what is the connecting issues of the customer and the maybe a business units, the employer. And this is very, very crucial things. And in any platforms which we provide, the most thing is first customers should trust. Suppose if I wanted to buy an insurance and before a pandemic or after the pandemic, there will be a physical connect between whether it's a Uber customer, whether it is the insurance customer. People used to have a face-to-face connect and create a first trust on the things. Now it is everything when you're doing an online, the trust becomes the most important things. Somebody is selling, okay, trying to sell a customer an insurance product. Many occasions, even myself has been experienced that could not able to trust whether it is the call is coming from it is an insurance company or it is a fraudster, because the fraudster also is continuously utilizing the channels, which is digital channels, which is enabling a lot of new business. The advantage also used by the fraudster. So how do you build this trust is the very, very important. So in the payment platforms, what is one of the thing has been established maybe in my earlier tenure at an NPCI currently also, and it is giving an assurance that, and when you making a payment or making a transaction, yes, it is going to be a right people. And when it is happen any issues and it need to be immediately resolved. A customer grievance need to be addressed immediately. So all these things, how you'll able to take your decisions when you have a data with you, and you can able to tell, okay, whether this customer is really with an Uber or not. You need to connect it where it is, where, which location, whether previously the customer was where he did an earlier transaction, whether he could able to travel, whether it is the a transport company, whether it is an insurance transaction. We need to connect the things. It is everything data. You need to be collaborated the data and take a decision within a 20 seconds, even less than 20 seconds. The decision has been taken whether the transaction need to be approved, even at the central systems. And then it goes to an issuer. Issuer also takes one more call based on the central system score, whether we need to have go ahead or not, because finance is the very crucial component in any of the business. And the when this pandemic created the CISO's roles, I don't know how now CISOs are not, earlier people used to listen to CISOs. Now it is the CISOs have to listen to the business unit and technology guys, because there is no other alternatives. We need to survive. We need to connect to the employees. We need to connect the customers and various things. So the paradigm has been changed. I think the data is, everybody is talking about the thing and need to be utilized, and whether it is a, many people talk about privacy, that's a different issues, but data is the core thing for doing and ensuring the confidentiality and trust between the even employee as well as the end customer. That's my just view. Whatever I'm current organization, we do NEFT and RTGS, the same thing, because RTGS is the very high value transactions.
No, absolutely, Rajendran. I think this is very critical, that as we are dealing with more and more data, more and more real-time decisions and transactions, the issue of trust will become even more important. Trust about the third-party transactions, trust about the quality of the data, trust in terms of ensuring that the right things are happening, disclosure about how the data is being used. Particularly, there are lots of things which are being talked about, that people use the data, but they don't even tell what the data is being used for. So I think this is something which will become a very important aspect. And just to continue that thought, I would probably like to now invite Zubair. So Zubair, you have been in a business which has seen an unprecedented, growth, I would like to say, because of the increase in the usage of, machines and laptops and computers and all that. Also, there could have been a lot of disruptions coming in as well, because the demand could have been very inconsistent. More so, the supply could have been a bit of a challenge as well, because how do you even predict that this is going to be the change in the demand? So probably you may see that there is now a lot of emphasis on looking at the data and using that data to take the right decisions from by building the models, and there is a little bit of a convergence between the world of the data and world of analytics, and that is also understandably so, because one cannot happen without the other. So would be great to hear your thoughts, Zubair, in this aspect, and understand from you your experience and your learnings in these disrupted times.
Yeah, thank you, Sudipta. Yes, as a leading distributor, Redington is a leading distributor for Dell EMC, and we have a huge responsibility to deliver all the building blocks that go into a data center, whether be it compute devices, the servers, and the storage solutions, which we take help of Dell EMC to deliver to the customers with the help of our channel partners. We don't deliver directly. Of course, we have an indirect relationship over there. So we have a couple of critical components that go into the way we operate and make all these things happen. So the first enabler, of course, is that we have a responsibility to make these devices available as and when they are required. So when pandemic started last year, though we were anticipating that there will be an upsurge in demand for laptops, but we still fell short. Our warehouses went empty within the span of 2 weeks, and we wish that we could have done more to help the end customer organization, because it was 100% work from home more for the next couple of months, and how long that was going to continue was not very clear. And yes, so desktops remained in office, and everybody working from home needed a laptop. But yes, so their Dell EMC chipped in with their smart inventory planning and their production facilities. So with a little gap, we were able to come back on that. And we are still trying to understand how Dell managed that and still managing it. So yes, so but it took us a little bit of off guard. We did have our inventory planning tools in-house, but those tools were more relying 80% on the past data and 20% predictive. So after this, now we are making an attempt to reverse this. It has to be 80% predictive and 20% based on past, because we have already seen one disruption, and even now we live in a little bit of uncertainty at how. And I hope that this AI tool that the company use is getting smarter day by day to even outsmart this kind of disruption that we went through. Then the second component which helps us to make this availability happen is credit, because it takes some time for us to deliver to the partner, and then partner doing the deploy and complete the order to cash cycle. So credit decisions need to be taken. So of course it is an art and a science at the same time. And now we are trying to rely more on the science part. And just to share with you, we are developing a module with the help of a service provider based out of Singapore, a module which is based on AI to take those smart credit decisions. Of course, we have our own, credit decisions taken based on the credit insurance and the way banks advise us. But this model gives us smart decisions, because we have more than 8,000 channel partners, and everybody credit decisions have to be taken. So everywhere it cannot be manual. So up to a certain threshold level, these decisions need to be automated to make things happen faster, to adopt faster to the market requirements. So we are more than 50% there. And by end of this year, we would have automated it completely. That is a wish plan. We wish to automate completely. Let's see how far it goes. Now, as far as for us at Redington, yeah, we have a lot of past data inside, which give us a lot of insights to deal with these uncertainties. But the challenge remains that this data is residing in various pockets, in various formats. Now, the effort is on to read it in a uniform level so that the data ingestion happens properly when we go on to adopt these tools from Tableau, Splunk, and Cratio. These are tools that we are utilizing. Of course, we have SAP to handle the supply chain part. So to achieve this synchronization, the effort is on, and we have achieved more than 50% in those efforts. And we'll continue our efforts, and I'll share more as the discussions come on.
No, great. I think, Zubair, I think that was great, because you talked about one particular aspect which is very critical, and that is about using models to take decisions on the credit decisions or credit worthiness of the customers, and then that can help you in terms of deciding how much of credit you need to extend. And I'll come back to this question a little later, because this is something which is very important. But before I do that, you touched upon the other important aspect of using the data, getting the data from all the relevant sources, putting it in a usable format, and then using reverse the ratio of 80 to 20, making 80% more predictive, as opposed to the other way around. So in that same kind of theme, I would like to now invite Milind. Milind, you have been a veteran in terms of your experience in building solutions, AI solutions, technology solutions, and it would be great to understand from your perspective as to what kind of use cases, what kind of applications which have really transformed, particularly from a manufacturing perspective, from your experience. If you can share that, that would be great.
Thank you, Sudipta. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this session and represent Vikram Solar. I'm a technologist, so let me actually start my answer with a philosophical note, because you will never find a technologist who is not a philosopher. Because I started actually my career in the technology space. And whatever we are actually discussing right now in terms of data analytics, artificial intelligence, algorithm-based data analysis, many of these actually concepts are old. And they were actually being applied in computational engineering, computational actually physics. Necessity is mother of invention. And why do we actually change so fast in the time of crisis, especially actually during these COVID times, is not necessarily because we reinvent the wheel. We really actually optimize our historical understanding and learning and integrate it faster. An example I can give you is this: actually, for this data revolution to happen, there are many contributors. One of the contributors was actually how to engineer defects in silicon so that we can reduce the sizes of devices, so that computational power can improve, software actually development can happen. The key seminal actually change in this happened in 1982, when a famous Russian scientist named Vladimir Voronkov showed how to do this. But really the entire world took nearly 15 to 20 years even to understand actually what was actually there and implement this. So sometimes it really actually takes a crisis like COVID for us to really optimize what we are doing. So when we actually talk about neural network-based learning, machine learning, data analytics, optimization, this was being done in actually research field, and today actually it has become a mainstream application, right? And this is, if you take a step back, core competencies in quantitative analysis that drive engineering, physics, business processes, market, economics, finance, they are the same. So what I see actually from my point of view is essentially leveraging actually improved computational power, improved actually architecture, and application of these same concepts. And this is extremely useful. For example, in the energy sector, it is extremely important for us to actually collect data, how modules behave, how the output actually changes as a function of climatic conditions. Can we actually predict the weather to a certain extent in the short term? Can we optimize module output actually so that we can actually reduce operating costs? Do we understand actually customer consumption behavior? So for this actually data is extremely important. In fact, actually perhaps data is the most important thing in optimizing efficiency in the solar sector. Using actually that data and optimizing based on both hardware behavior such as modules and consumer behavior becomes extremely important. And in Vikram Solar, that's what we are trying to do. We have actually quite a few programs in the pipeline, right from machine learning, artificial intelligence, neural network-based algorithm, robotic process automation, which we are implementing both to improve organizational processes as well as improve manufacturing. Right. The platform actually on which we are doing is more or less the same. We have to actually store the data centrally, and it is very, very actually important not to get lost in trees and see the jungle. And it is also very important for us to actually separate signal from the noise. And for that, data filtering and data analysis becomes extremely important. And we have a sizable actually group of data scientists who are working in each and every aspect of data analysis and optimization. And we have already actually implemented quite a few actually processes to automate repetitive actions in business processes. And it is a learning process for us also, but we completely actually believe in being part of this data revolution because there are no options left for anybody. This is going to be the way of life for all of us. Those who really actually do not understand data and do not know how to optimize their processes, both business, manufacturing, and R&D, will be left behind. So it is not going to remain a competitive edge anymore. It is going to be the new norm So it is extremely important for survival. So anyway, actually, that's my view. And Vikram Sonar is actually fully engaged in making sure that it is part of this data evolution.
Sure. No, I think that's very helpful, Milind, and I completely agree that this subject of deep learning-based algorithms, they were not very new. They have been there since 70s. But of course, it needed the computational power and the ability to kind of extract so much of data or capture so much of data to make it really relevant. And also the disruptions actually fueled that initiative, and now we are seeing that revolution coming in, and very rightly pointed out that this will almost like become a table stakes and may not really be so much of a differentiator going forward, because everybody will have to do it for the sake of just remaining competitive in the long run. One thing which kind of struck me during this conversation, and I want to kind of throw it open, we have some more time with us, is the question about trust, about risks, about taking decisions related to credit rating of people. So I know there are a number of challenges anyways in terms of building AI solutions, but are there any specific challenges any of you foresee, either from a market perspective or from an employee perspective or from a partner ecosystem perspective, which you need to be very careful about, particularly when you are using data-driven, AI-driven solutions in order to address some of your challenges? So I just want to throw it open. Anybody will be keen to kind of answer this question? Yes, Mani.
So I'll go first. So as you said, right, 5-10 years back, if you take any company, the main differentiator of this company is the software that they build, right? But now, as Milind said, with all these cloud computing services coming into picture, Uber has its own infra team, right? Software by itself is no a big differentiator. The differentiator that the company provides today is the data that they have, and how do we leverage that data, and how do we give the best experience to the customers by leveraging the data, right? And that is the one which is very hard for the competitors to replicate. You can actually replicate a software much easily with all the building blocks that is provided by the services today, right? So this is the key differential. Now going back to your question of how do we ensure that that data is preserved in a very good ways, making sure that it's preserved from employees of the company, right? It's also preserved and it is customized only for that experience, right? So it's not shared with. That has been the topmost priority for companies like Uber, where data privacy and security is the highest priority. It is by design when we are building any solutions, right? In fact, those are like table stakes, and in fact, we compromise on some of our decisions just to ensure that that is being taken care of. Right? And today we also do a lot of investments to ensure that whoever have access to the data, and what do we do with the data, and how do we ensure that we give that back to the customer so that they have the ability to control what data is getting collected versus what data cannot be collected, right? Is super critical, right? That level of transparency needs to be built, and that is the one which actually makes a company successful when they are actually leveraging data to be successful. Today we leverage data in all sorts of places, right? Like a few examples, right? Today, when we do a route calculation, right? When you book an Uber, you see an ETA, which is expected time of arrival, as how much time will a car take to come to you, right? We will not just go by what is given by the maps. We'll also use historical data, and all these things needs to be analyzed within like sub-seconds to figure out what is the right ETA. What is the pricing that we need to give you? What is the rider pricing, and what is the driver? There are so many elements that we actually use to, within sub-seconds to ensure that we leverage all this data to give the best experience, ensuring that the data privacy.
No, absolutely. I think, this is something which is going to become more and more critical going forward. And a lot of trust.
To add, Bose, if you
oh, yes, Rajendran, please go ahead.
Because Manikandan touched upon a lot of things, and thanks, Manikandan. And the one thing you said, the credit or the decisions or the lending decisions. Okay, a risk-based decisions need to be taken not only for the while providing the credit, also ongoing while you are the collecting the things. Also, you continuously need to monitor whether that going to be become an NPA or you need to give it going to pay it off. For example, I will tell you one very simple things. All of you using the FASTag. Okay, FASTag, how it is happening? It's not a real time debit happening on the account. It is only on based on the negative values. It goes when your vehicle crosses a toll plaza, it checks whether you have a positive balance or not. Then after sometimes it gets synchronized to the backend. In the toll plaza systems are get the synchronized the backend. Suppose in one case, what will happen when you synchronize happen and your balance will become a negative. Then the negative is the risk factors. Maybe one transaction. But how you are going to mitigate it, then you know the things definitely the vehicle may again come back to toll and another toll. Then he may not able to travel or you need to recharge it. And while recharging, you need to do. So a lot of the computational methods you need to the workout, lot of relative data need to be taken while providing a credit or while collecting the back on the loans also. So I think it is very, very all data driven only going to help for the maybe optimizing.
Sure. No, I think that's very important. Particularly when you are running an algorithm, you need to take some risk-based approach, and also the point about extending credit to your customers based on certain parameters and risk factors, etc., is going to be more and more critical. Particularly because you may not be able to see the customer, you may not be able to personally talk to the customer. It will all happen through remote channels, or sometimes nobody is actually physically interacting with the customer anyways, right? So just was curious, and Sachin, I'll try and put you on spot on this question. Are you sensing some of these in the world of life insurance? Because that is also something which is very, very people centric, and automation and the ability to use tools for looking at the history or the rating or the persistency related challenges, etc. So are you sensing that there will be a need for being a little more careful about some of these models which are currently being used?
Yes,
definitely. I just wanted to add one to Sachin. He goes, see, when you do the risk calculation, are you also getting involved in medical shops which persons buying, pathological labs which is people are doing testing, or an R&D lab which is doing DNAs? Are you also doing those areas of data? I just wanted, if it is not a confidential, you can just throw it on.
So, yes, Dr. Rajendran, a lot of such analytics are going behind. And I think the challenge, from Manikandan's standpoint, data security is extremely critical. So, exchange of information, we are also very sensitive to not kind of having access to the information that we should not be having access to. And whatever data is available in a structured or an unstructured format, a lot of analytics is run, at the back end to be able to then predict a customer behavior or a pattern. Now, I wanted to just share that, Sudipta, to your question also, that life insurance is a little softer aspect. People, in India, while as I said, we are under-penetrated. We do not talk about life insurance to how we will talk about online gift that, or an online purchase that we will do, right? There's always an exposure that the family then carries if you are under insured. So I think it is important for the organization, especially the life insurance, and what I see as a trend is, and just picking up from, the other colleagues who mentioned on the panel, having the right structure is very important. Having the right platform is very important. And also the shift, most of the times you will see yourself dissecting the past. But if your baseline changes, so for example, COVID has changed the operating environment. All the parameters, all the attributes that we thought are, are normalizing to a certain extent and give you a degree of confidence with which you can predict. All those parameters, changed when the lockdown happened and are still kind of settling down. Now, the challenge that I see in that kind of an operating environment is how do you baseline and how do you predict a customer behavior or a pattern which is kind of being very volatile? So, picking up from the volatility that exists, it does kind of drop down your ability to predict future with a certain degree of confidence. And analytics people or people with data science background are trying to lower down their confidence levels in saying that I can predict with this much level of confidence. And that is where I think the right structure, the right tools, and I think last point from me is agility, right? A customer pattern or a behavior, to Dr. Rajendran sir's question. That if you go in the market and probably you've done a blood test and it has given you certain output. Now the customer is not sharing that with us. If you're a life insurance customer with us, and we do not, we basically capture the information at the point of sale that how the health insurance is. Now that for me is also a data point, not from insurance perspective. We're not just only selling insurance. I think what is important is if that event happens in a customer's journey, that your blood test report has given you something, or if you're wearing a wearable, we're talking about watches that can predict your health and, central data collection and all of that. I think what is important and what is shifting now is higher degree of customer engagements. In terms of engaging with the customer, which is catered to the need of the customer, rather than generalizing it and trying to sell insurance and say that this is the growth that we've been able to achieve on the top line. So all of these attributes are connected, but the only challenge that at least I see and probably will remain with us is when the baseline changes, and COVID has induced that change. How do you kind of come to the correct baseline and your ability to predict and take the ship forward? Which is in current times under risk, if I can use that word. I think that's important from my side. But yes, to answer your question in a very short manner, a lot of innovation and thought process is going to kind of, change the overall perception of life insurance to what the customer perceives it, to what the life insurance sells, and to increase our engagement levels. I'm sure each one of us are having insurance policy. We only deal with the insurance company once in a year to pay. So I think it is important for the insurance companies to kind of take
Right. So no, I think Sachin, I think very very so wise words of wisdom from your perspective, and definitely the baseline and the ability to predict that has kind of become a bit of a challenge because we don't have too much of historical data to rely upon. Even if we do have historical data, that historical data may not have a lot of meaning because the circumstances which were there in the past have completely changed. So in that sense, it is a bit of a challenge as to how do you address some of these nuances when you are trying to predict something. So I know, I mean, this is a very fascinating conversation and I would have loved to kind of continue even more, but I understand that, we have a bit of a stop on the time. So I'll just kind of, quickly check if there are any questions from the audience. Or anybody like to kind of ask any question. Otherwise, we can probably end the session.
Well, all right. It looks like at the moment, Sudipta, there aren't any questions running, but I think there have been a lot of questions that were asked by you and were addressed so aptly by our discussants. So I have to say a big thank you to all of you there. So we keep talking about data. So you really can't, make the bricks without the clay, right? So there we go. Thank you very much, as you said, for the fascinating conversation, to you, Sudipta, and to the entire set of panelists. Thank you very much for joining us. If there's any question, etc., that's still coming up in your minds, dear audience members, make sure you can put it in the comment box. And of course, you're free to initiate chat and discussions across the platform as well. For now, yes, I would be leading you all into the next session. But before that, I had just got to know because I'm parallelly also keeping a track onto your view. So I just learned that, especially because I was concerned about how you gain more points, right, on your leaderboard. So I can just quickly give you a heads up that, of course, you have already earned some set of good 100 points by logging into the platform, right? You're attending the sessions, that's a plus. You are gaining points. You are visiting the partner booths, are you? That is also getting you some good points. Well, remember to download the booth content, any documents, any good resources that are there for your kind perusal. Please make sure you have a look at it. Completing the feedback. As I told you, there's one at the partner exhibits and one that we would want you to fill in. So make sure you do that, because that also gets you some huge number of points out there. But that is, of course, just once that you can do. And remember to click on the photo booth, because it's not just your tweets coming in, but also we would be very happy, to see you, if not in person, at least in your photographs for now. So make sure you post your comments, your experiences using our official hashtag #ETDataCon, along with your pictures, just clicked in rightly there. So, all right, we're just warming up, gearing up for the session coming up. Stay tuned, have a quick look at the platform, explore whatever you want to. We will be right back.
Thank you.